It is Friday, which means it's time for Cin-Emma Extra. And this week we are chasing summer trends and taking a look at what puts butts in theater seats. So here to dive into some new research, let's give it over to our cinema sommelier, Emma Jerome.
Well, thank you, Travis. Superhero movies make a big splash for the summer movie season, but experts are looking at one key factor for an explosive 2025 summer box office. So here to help parse the research is David Onda. He's the entertainment expert with Xfinity. Thanks for joining me today, David. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me, Emma. Good morning. I'm excited to be here on the West Coast, live from Philadelphia.
Live from Philly. You know, I go to the movie theater every week, and looking at the marquee, something I've noticed and something that you know is nostalgia seems to be driving people to the theater. We have Superman. We have I Know What You Did Last Summer. What's up with that? Why is that the newest trend with Hollywood?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a new trend. I mean, nostalgia always wins, especially at the box office, especially in the summer months. I mean, this year we're looking at 19 major theatrical wide releases that are either sequels, spin-offs, remakes, reboots, and there were only 13 last summer. And, you know, even in a summer like 2023, where we saw Barbie, which was an existing IP that really drove a lot of box office dollars. We had sequels and reboots there too, because you know, I think summer box office is where these studios and where the theaters really make their money. And if they don't make that money, then they cease to exist. So you know, that's what drives people to go to the theaters, and we're happy they do.
You know, everyone just goes to the theater for the remake, hoping that maybe it's as good as the original. So at least with I Know What You Did Last Summer, Freddie Prinze and Jennifer Love Hewitt have seemed to put their stamp of approval. So I'm cautiously optimistic. What are other major box office hits for this summer?
So far we've seen 8 movies cross the $100 million mark at the box office, which is pretty impressive so far. Only 9 movies crossed that milestone in 2024. We had 13 in 2023, as I mentioned, is kind of the milestone as far as post-COVID box office goes. And so far this year, the movies driving those big numbers are Lilo and Stitch, the live-action remake of that Disney classic, Jurassic Park Rebirth, How to Train Your Dragon, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, Thunderbolts. So you're seeing that trend of established movies, sequels, remakes, but then you also have something like F1, the movie, which was a big hit this summer. And although it's not technically a summer movie, Sinners was one of the biggest movies of the year so far, and it's performing really well on demand as well, and on streaming through HBO Max. So we're seeing a little bit of both, but like I said, it is those big notable titles that are really driving viewership.
Yeah, those big notable titles that are familiar to many people, even if you haven't heard of the newer ones. I loved Sinners. I loved F1. In your opinion, David, how do you balance nostalgia and the crave we have for it with, you know, sequel fatigue and just another Fast and Furious movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key there is that it's up to us as the viewers to go and see the original movies. There's always going to be sequels. There's always going to be these big established properties. And I think that's part of the fun of going to the movies in the summer. Like, going to see superhero movies in the summer is just as nostalgic as the superhero movies themselves. But when you have something like Sinners, or the movie Friendship with Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd, or Eddington, which is released today with Joaquin Phoenix and Emma Stone and Pedro Pascal, we have another one, Caught Stealing, coming up with Austin Butler and Zoe Kravitz. If we go and support those movies and see those original movies, then they'll start making more of them, and we will get that balance in theaters. And I think that's the really important key, is go support original stories, but also have a lot of fun seeing Jurassic World and seeing Fantastic Four and these movies that are the quote-unquote tentpoles of the summer.
Yeah, last question for you, David.
Sure.
What's the best movie you've seen so far, and what are you most excited for coming out?
I'll start with what I'm most excited about seeing, and I kind of mentioned that already. It's Eddington, which is in theaters today. It is a comedy Western from Ari Aster, who's the director of Midsommar and Hereditary. It's 2 of the best, most original movies that have come out in the last few years. It's set in May 2020 in the midst of the pandemic and follows a small town sheriff and a mayoral candidate as they feud during this re-election, and it's just obviously like set amongst the bizarre situation of the pandemic. So I'm really excited for that. I mentioned Caught Stealing with Austin Butler. That's set in the 90s and follows a former baseball player who gets caught up in the underworld after volunteering to take care of his punk rock neighbor's cat. And who hasn't been there?
I know.
And
who among us?
yeah. And as far as the best movie that I've seen so far this summer, I'm going to double down on Sinners. I also saw Superman. If you like Superman, if you're a Superman fan, you're going to love it. It wasn't a perfect movie, but it is pure summer box office joy. So check that out.
I know. As long as it's enjoyable, I consider it a good movie. I still have to see Superman, so I'm looking forward to doing that. David, thank you so much for joining us. So this is great insight, and between you and me and our influence here on this little program, we'll keep theaters alive, huh?
Yeah, from your lips to God's ears, right?
There we go. David, thanks so much.
Thanks, Emma.
All right, check out this interview and more Cin-Emma Extra features by heading